Well, welcome to Building the Basics, where we walk new and prospective gun owners through the how, what, wheres, and whys of gun ownership and helping them make the best decisions on their firearms ownership journey.
In this episode today, we got Kate Giddins, who is the New Hampshire State Director for Women for Gun Rights, and she recently became the Northeast Regional State Director. So congratulations to your new appointment, Kate.
Thank you very much.
We're really excited for this episode. We have a lot of great topics that we want to cover. I know that we got to have a really good outline when we had our initial discussion. So just to start things off, do you want to talk to us a little bit about you, where you're from? Because people might not know that you're from outside the U.S. And then talk a little bit about the intro of what you want to say for Women for Gun Rights.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you, Marvin. Well, if they didn't know I was from outside the U.S., they certainly will now. The accent is just a little bit funny, but I am told that even if I'm talking gibberish, people like to listen to it. So y'all are in for a treat tonight. I'm originally from Australia, and I immigrated here in 2018 when I married my husband, who's an American, and a law enforcement guy, veteran guy, very much into guns. And I was never against guns. I never had a real problem with them, or so I thought. That will come back in the story later. But coming from Australia, we didn't have access to guns for a very long time. They used to be a fairly normal part of life, just sporting equipment or something you collected. And in 1996, there was a massacre in Tasmania, which is a southern state of Australia, and a lot of people died, and really a nation was left quite wounded from it. And there was a knee-jerk reaction from the government at the time, which was, strangely enough, a conservative government, and pretty much overnight gun confiscation and gun bans came in. And from 1996 onwards, if you had a firearm, you were guilty by association to that massacre. So from my sort of like mid-teens, guns went from being, I guess dangerous objects, if you wanted to say that, to being bad. But I was always a little bit of a rebel, so bad was kind of good in my book. So when I came to America and first, I discovered that people didn't just own a gun, they owned safes full of them. It was quite an experience and a topsy-turvy world to come into, but one that I have really found a home in, not just here in America, which I love. And I'm a very proud citizen. I became a citizen last year in May. So,
oh, congratulations.
Yes, I just had my anniversary.
Oh, nice.
But I have found quite a comfortable home in the firearms community as well, which is just an incredible community. And for all the ladies listening who are new firearms owners, or even for the gents, you are so very welcome here, and you will find many friends, and just get into it and get involved.
Wonderful. Thanks. And a little bit about the Women for Gun Rights organization. So how did it get started? How did you get involved with it? It must have been a very, being, a newer person to the country, but then also a new citizen. So, how did you find it?
It found me,
oh,
really,
okay.
And it found me and then sort of tripped me over and tipped me into the State House, and I just suddenly started testifying. Before I was even a citizen, I was still a permanent resident, but I had gotten involved with a women's shooting league and made some connections there who I didn't know at the time were deeply involved, more so than just social shooting. They were more deeply involved in leadership areas within the 2A community. And one of the ladies who is a very, a forerunner for this Women's Shooting League in New Hampshire was initially approached, I believe, for the role of state director, and preferring to keep politics separate. I assume she asked if I would take it. And I had felt at that time that I had received, even in a short time, even in just not even a year at that stage of being part of the 2A community, but I still felt that I had received a lot from it, and it was a pretty obvious way, I thought at the time, and I still do think, for me to give back, not just to the community, but to my country. And so I said, yes, I will do that with great pleasure. And then I found out the next week that several gun bills were coming up in the State House, and I gave myself the option to back out and say, no, you're just learning, take it easy, baby steps. But when I commit with my whole heart. So I said, come on, Kate, in you go. And it was such a strange experience. I was nervous out of my skin just to sit there in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and tell them what I thought. And it was an out-of-body experience, I have to say. And I just realized that what I'm saying, I'm not hearing from anybody else. And the difference was, I knew for myself that I was absolutely so vulnerable in the moment, just speaking from my heart. And a lot of the times in these spaces, you hear talking points. You don't hear lived, real experiences. And so that was very powerful to me. And I, from there, thought, you know what, maybe I do have a voice. Maybe rather than just intellectually thinking, oh, I have something to give, actually deeply knowing, I think I do. And a lot of it comes down to a silly accent. But Di Muller, who is the founder of Women for Gun Rights, she started something called the DC Project in around about 2015, I think it was. Sorry, Di, if I got that wrong. But she's been at this for a while. She's a world champion competitive shooter, ex-law enforcement officer, 22-year veteran of law enforcement. And she really started this movement on a federal level and sort of like testified before Congress numerous times on gun bills, and it occurred to her that she had a challenge cut out for her, and that there was a group called Moms Demand Action that had representatives in every state across this nation, and so the DC Project had to grow, and slowly but surely, just through the 2A community, Di found people to be state directors, and we now have nationwide coverage, which is very exciting. And
are you in all 50 states now?
We just got someone in Rhode Island, and we're looking for someone in Vermont. So
for any Vermont listeners, yeah,
come on, girls, if you want to keep your guns, somebody has to take that role. So we're hoping someone will come along, and I'm a really friendly person, so just get in touch.
That's awesome.
And it is good fun, but there is a very serious side to it, and it's not always easy, but it's really worthwhile.
So, Kate, would you tell us a little bit about the podcast that you have? I hear that you've got one coming out soon, and what is all that about?
Well, the podcast that's coming out soon, actually, it's going to come out after our annual fly-in to DC, where the state directors all gather in the Capitol and appeal to our legislators there, some who will see us and some who will not. But that is our big footprint every year, to go to DC. This is my first year. It's very exciting. I'll be leaving on Thursday, so wish me luck, guys, for that. But the podcast is called Gun Stories for Girls. And Gun Stories for Girls was really the genesis of it was it was a creative experiment, a little rabbit hole that I went down to begin with, where I had been speaking to women and finding a lot of women were saying, well, you know what, we're being encouraged to use our voice, tell our story, support the Second Amendment, but a lot of them are saying, I don't really have a story. My husband bought me a gun and I learned how to shoot it. I was never attacked. I'm not the victim of anything, and I'm just boring. And it just blew my mind, because this is coming from some amazing women that I personally know, just phenomenal life stories. And for myself, my gun story, I would have said, started in 2018 when I immigrated here and I first touched a gun. But it didn't. It started so many years before I even saw or held a gun. And it starts with a thought, a memory, an emotion. And so many women have these sort of biases in them and all these little stories surrounding firearms, that when they actually get to buy one or touch one or think about owning one, there are these fears and anxieties and if you didn't have a gun story before that point, how did those fears develop? What is your journey actually about? And when we delve into these fascinating worlds, the inner life of girls and guns, women see that it's not necessarily the major, trauma stories that are the most interesting. They're certainly the most impressive, and they are absolutely need honoring and need to be heard, because particularly our legislators need to know that the laws you make have real world effects. They're not just pieces of paper, but for the many women that don't have those major traumas, they need to know that their life is so precious and so valuable that they have this, God-given right to defend the space that they exist in, and they don't have to make an excuse for it. They don't have to explain it away or somehow rationalize their ability to defend it. But they also need to know that your story needs elevating as well, because there are seeds of glory and power, knitted into our fiber. And if I can just impress upon one woman how amazing she is through telling her story, that will make me happy. So Gun Stories for Girls started as a seminar with groups of women. It's a creative writing journey that we go through, mind mapping and drawing out their story, and from their story, crafting a personal mission statement in support of the 2A, not a talking point, but an actual real fact that no one can challenge you on. And that has now evolved into a forthcoming podcast where it will just be a one-on-one with someone that we will just nitpick through their story and just find out how fascinating these real lives are. So that is the podcast. Stay tuned.
That sounds wonderful. And yeah, honestly, probably by the time that we release this, your podcast is already going to be out. So for our listeners, so where will they be able to reach you? How do they search for you, for that podcast?
The podcast, you'll be able to listen to it through my website, joanofarms.com. Joan of Arms is my little training business, and it's a little bit of a different firearms training business. I sort of focus a lot on mental wellness and as well as sort of like self-defense. But so it will be streamed through there, and people can jump on and have a listen.
Excellent. So joanofarms.com. Awesome. Great. So back to Women for Gun Rights. So how does it's in a lot of states, right? So how do you do community outreach? How do you reach the people that you are trying to reach? Women, allies of women, the men that are trying to support their wives or their girlfriends. What does community outreach look like for you guys?
Well, it is different in every state to a greater or lesser degree. Every state director has the freedom to sort of grow Women for Gun Rights in their state, however their state needs. So here in New Hampshire, it's a little bit different. When I took on the role, I discovered that we already have a really amazing women's 2A group called Women's Defense League. They're a phenomenal group, and they have been doing the hard work for a long time, and I will beat the drum all day for Women's Defense League and Kim Moran and the girls. You're amazing. So Women for Gun Rights just didn't have anybody here. And so when I came in, I realized very quickly that there is no steed to ride in on, and there's no need for it either. So what do I do here? So Women for Gun Rights in New Hampshire is more or less just to support the grassroots efforts here and to bring those issues on a national level from New Hampshire to the capital. That's what I can offer. And how we go about introducing ourselves to prospective, we call them delegates, so people who sign up. There's no money involved. It's really we would just love your support, and actually we would love your story as well. And that sort of works hand in hand with the Gun Stories for Girls. Just to have something to present to our legislators and say, listen to this, listen to this real life that's impacted by your decision. So we go around to gun shows, not that we have that many here in New Hampshire, but states like our state director down in Louisiana, I mean, she's at a gun show every weekend. They have amazing gun shows down there. And so she will just have a stall there, pamphlets, flyers, T-shirts, and raffles. So our raffles are fairly amazing. We used to just have little fundraisers and raffles on a state level, but as of last year, Women for Gun Rights, particular Di, and some other directors having inroads in with the larger manufacturers, we now package together big raffles, like worth a lot of money. And so you go onto womenforgunrights.org, and there's a shop link that you can go to there where you can buy raffle tickets for these huge raffle. I mean, we got giant SIG ones, we got giant Walter ones, Ruger ones, and we're talking, $10, $12, $15,000 packages, and the tickets are like $25.
Oh, wow.
So we do fundraising and community engagement sort of through that avenue as well, to say, well, let's give you a gun. And then sort of just, it's really on a one-to-one level, more or less, me going and talking with women.
Yeah.
Going to gun stores saying, can we put out a flyer?
Mm-hmm.
And talking with legislators, getting your name out that way, and building those networks with both the community and and legislators. And well, our legislators are part of our community, really. So it's just a little bit of a slog, because it's a tough issue as well for people to get involved with. They're afraid to speak about it. And I guess that's the other thing about Gun Stories for Girls, is just to say you don't have to know everything to say. You just need to know your story and why your story is worth telling and why it's worth having you here on the planet. Mm-hmm. And that really is a one-on-one thing.
That's really cool.
I think one of the most amazing things that you're talking about right now, to me, Kate, is that you did talk about women who are working through trauma, and that's the reason why they're purchasing a firearm or getting a gun for self-protection. But I think the themes that you're touching on are so much more powerful, in my opinion, because you're touching on themes of agency, you're touching on themes of independence, you're touching on themes of empowerment for women, and not waiting for something bad to happen, right? We don't wear a seatbelt because we don't start wearing seatbelts after we get into an accident. We wear seatbelts so that we don't get hurt after we get into an accident. When we encounter an accident, same thing with a fire extinguisher. So I think that's so amazing that that Women for Gun Rights is being proactive in women's lives, in getting women involved. And so I guess, do you have any stories or any testimony that you've heard from women who you've encountered during Women for Gun Rights, your time as director for gun rights, that you may want to share with our listeners about somebody who may have been on the fence, or hey, I really wasn't for me, but realized it and changed their opinion on it. Because I think that's when you were talking about Moms Demand Action, I think that's a big piece of it, is reaching people, getting emotional, getting people off of the sidelines. And instead of getting people off of the sidelines and saying, oh, well, this is this big scary thing, and it's just detrimental to society, being the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, firstly, I love that seatbelt analogy, Marv. I am going to borrow that. That was really good. One of the difficult things about getting women engaged in something that really does wade deeply in the political arena, it's not a fun place really to be unless you're particularly politically minded, which actually I'm not. So I was never a political activist, politically involved. The only reason that I am now is because I want to be able to defend my life. And I think when you connect with women on that level, and not just their lives for women, it's the lives of their children, it's the lives of their families. This, the image of the mama bear is a really powerful one with women, and it's one that I have in mind a lot when I'm talking to women, particularly about how gun laws impact their lives, because the legislations that take away these firearm freedoms, which is something that I would encourage, like a term that I would encourage new like women who are new to firearms ownership, just to think about that firearms freedom and what that means to your life. And it doesn't just mean, I can have any gun I want and shoot it. It's really about your ability to defend yourself when there is, what do they call it? The term has slipped my mind. The disparity of force. So women and men, just completely different. Like, we're all human, but we're kind of like shirts and pants. We might be cut from the same cloth, but we have very different, purposes. And if you try and put a shirt on as a pair of pants, look very silly. And don't need to say more about that. But, and vice versa. And so when it comes to the ability to defend yourself, if you have, if you as a woman, let's say you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master and you come up against someone like a Pee Wee Herman, well, you probably stand a very good chance. But the odds of that happening are not, that's not very likely. More likely is you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master and you come up against a male master and you have absolutely no hope. So to bridge that gap, you need to have power in your hand. And the laws that take away that power, the laws that are made in the name of, the greater good, are actually like declawing the mama bear. And eventually they won't be happy until all her claws are gone, all her teeth are taken, and that mama bear is still going to fight tooth and nail for her babies. And it's just the saddest thing that she will have the power taken away from her. So when we connect with women on this just really deep level of I am a defender as much as I am a survivor, they tend to, a switch goes off. You activate the mama bear code, and they tend to get involved after that because they realize. Now it's a bit of a rabbit hole to go down, but one of the things that really I found very impactful, it was a little bit scary, but it was also empowering when you have the ability to protect yourself. If you see the world, now the world is a beautiful place, but it's also a lot like a jungle. And there are predators out there, and if you ever sit down and just watch on YouTube a video of animals, predators, stalking prey. That's what bad people do to innocent people. They literally hunt you down, and you don't see them. And a lot of women who are victims, not all of them, but a lot of them, say, I never saw it coming. That's because the predator's doing what they do. So when you raise that awareness in women, not to be paranoid, but to be vigilant, then comes the question, well, how do I protect myself? If I'm aware of what's going on around me, what next? And the next thing is to learn how to defend yourself. And so there's lots of really kind of emotional roads to go down, talking with women, getting them involved in this side of things, because the practical application is really not so dramatic. It's literally sending an email to your legislator, to your local representative saying, please don't vote for this bill. So on the plus side, getting involved is not difficult, but it seems difficult on the surface because it's, politically active, and a lot of people just want to mind their own business. The good news is you can mind your own business very privately from the comfort of your home and still play a really meaningful role in shaping legislation and shaping the narrative around firearms. And really, Women for Gun Rights that's pretty much what we're trying to do, is preserve the Second Amendment, to advocate for women to be able to defend themselves, and also to promote this crazy idea that education and not legislation is the answer to reducing, gun violence and firearms safety and things like that. So you can't legislate away violence. You can only educate people on how to either counter it, avoid it, or try and shape the world try and shape our own little worlds, I suppose, in a way that reduces it. So that is our mission, and getting women involved isn't necessarily easy. And I haven't met a lot of women that stay on the fence very long. They're either on one side or they're on the other. Anybody on the fence tends to fall into the pro-gun field after a while, because it's not only part of our history, it's part of who we are. And some women reject that, and that's okay. Those of us who don't, who will still be here to defend them.
Yeah, there's three big points that I wanted to go down as you were talking, and it's funny because they're three very different paths. But the first path is, you mentioned at the very beginning when you did your intro how there was it a point in time, or there was something that you had. It's not like you always had a positive view. You had something, and then you said, "Oh, well, we'll get back to that later." So, is that a story that you can kind of segue into now to explain what that story was?
I can't remember it myself.
Oh, okay. We can.
It might have been about Port Arthur.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Port Arthur massacre was it was very bad, and the perpetrator was suffered from schizophrenia, had access, lived in rural area, had access to a lot of guns, and did a lot of damage. And that really did shape that event, plus the media spin, really did shape the gun narrative in Australia. And what was put forward then was like a buyback scheme and an amnesty. So the amnesty sounded like really friendly, but actually it implies that you have something that's, you're not going to get in trouble if you give your guns back. Why was I even in trouble? I did nothing wrong. But with the media attention, of course, I mean, it got attention for ages, and it still gets attention. You were guilty, like I said, you were guilty by association. So a lot of people handed in their guns because they didn't want to be seen as, crazy person like that, or a bad person. But, so, there's a lot of people that hid their guns as well. A lot of people still have guns under floorboards, I am sure, in Australia. But right now, what's come out of that, you can still purchase a gun in Australia. You can still legally own one. But it's a very long process. It's an expensive process, and you need to provide written evidence of your verifiable evidence of your need for one. And on the list of reasons to own a gun, one is not defending your life or your property, and I find that stunning. But hey, if you shoot clay and trap, sure, you can have one.
The second path and I'm curious if you have either done any work or of Maj Touré. He's down outside of inside the Philadelphia region, but he does stuff all over the country. His group it's called Black Guns Matter, and he does a lot of really great seminars. He's actually kind of branched out from just doing firearms, but he does a lot of just like you're talking about education. Here's what your basic rights are. Here's why you should be defending yourself. I was just curious if you had either heard of or done anything with Maj and his organization.
Have not done anything with Marsh. Have heard about. I've heard about his organization, and actually, I might get in touch with him. One thing that Women for Gun Rights are starting up after this DC trip actually is a sort of outward-facing webinar where we'll invite big guest speakers. I will be the host.
Of course.
Again, funny accent. And so we'll be getting some big name speakers on to talk about issues just once a month, and hopefully to just in that mission to educate people about firearms and similar to what you guys are doing as well, to introduce people who may be on the outside of the community to concepts and to get them more familiar with with what we do and how we talk, with the end goal to break this open to just be an American culture. It's not a sort of a little cult within America. This is America. And that's what we're going to do. And, I know that's what the mission you guys are on too. So
yeah, that sounds great.
We're very much aligned.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And then third topic was you were mentioning, and I don't know if you're hinting at this, but you have webinars, seminars, I think you actually came here to White Birch to do a seminar. So shout out to White Birch again for allowing us to record here.
Thank you,
I think this is
thank you, Cass.
Yeah, thank you. So do you do actual like firearms instruction? Do you do like basic 101 classes? Do you do anything like that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great.
So the seminar that was here at White Birch was the very first Gun Stories for Girls.
Oh, that's fun.
Which was really nerve-wracking, but we went through the seminar. I actually learnt a lot from it. So I had some really, really lovely guinea pigs in this room here, and all with phenomenal stories. And it was a lot of fun. So I was very grateful for that opportunity. And from there, so I've been training for. I wasn't shooting that long before I got the bug, and I have a background in fitness training. In another lifetime back in Australia, I was an aerial yoga instructor, and so my firearms practice is a little bit, I don't know, some might call it kooky, but that's where that focus on sort of mental wellness comes from, and physical wellness as well as your wholeness as a person. But my firearms training, I do one-on-one training. You can, again, it's just joanofarms.com, and you can sort of get in touch and book lessons. Nice. And where I'm operating out of at the moment is Pioneer Sportsman in Dunbarton, who are just down the road from me, and they've actually been very gracious in opening up their facilities to a new women's shooting league there as well, which I've just started up, and it's the Central New Hampshire chapter of A Girl and a Gun. So if anybody is in that area, doesn't have to be there. There's one based out of Peterborough. There's one actually based out of on this east side. I think they're Rochester somewhere. And then there's Southern New Hampshire down out of Pelham, and now there's Central New Hampshire.
Very cool.
So that's my little one.
Awesome. So yeah, pretty much joanofarms.com is pretty much the central hub for getting in touch with you about anything. That's great. Marvin, what do you want to touch on?
I just wanted to touch back on when you were talking about the Port Arthur massacre and how your reaction seemed to be so different than so many other Australians. And I just wanted to dive into that a little bit, and why you think your reaction personally was different, and why you think so many other Australians had the opposite reaction, because I think it mirrors very closely how I think Americans, there's the divide between American women who are pro-gun and American women who are with, gun control groups like Moms Demand Action. So I just wanted to get some of your insight in, why the different reactions are to things like gun control and something as tragic as the Port Arthur massacre?
Well, just as you were talking, Marv, the answer came very, very clear straight into my head, and it's because I wasn't afraid. And the message that comes from groups like Moms Demand, I am sure there are many lovely people, well-meaning women who love their communities, love their families, and want the best and aim the highest, I am sure. But their message is one of fear, not of freedom. And for women, like particularly women for gun rights, but women of I would expect most female firearms owners, whether it's just for sport or, for self-defense, or if they've taken up bearing arms in response to a tragedy, they have done that because they have decided that they will not be a victim. They will not be the next one. Neither will their families. So help them God. And that spirit of independence and I will just say that spirit of freedom is what drives our advocacy. And for myself, in response to something like the Port Arthur massacre, I won't lie and say, oh, I wasn't affected at all. And I was a teenager at the time. Yeah, I was influenced as much as anybody by what I saw on television, and not that I read the newspaper at that time, but, everyone, most people in Australia, I will say, oh, guns are terrible, this is dreadful. And actually, one of the sentiments that was quite strong at the time, we could go down a rabbit hole here, so maybe I shouldn't say it. No, I'll say it. One of the sentiments that was strong at the time was, oh God, we've become like America. Meaning, we were such a beautiful, safe place, and now we're dangerous as heck. Because America, they've got guns. In America, they've got bad people who do bad things with guns. That was a message that was out there. Oh no, now we're like them. Which is funny on this side of the pond. As an American, I go, yo, you guys, you wouldn't know what to do if you were us. Yes, bad things happen here. But look, bad things happen in Australia too. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at a very sad subject of suicide, where whether you have access to guns, whether you don't, it doesn't make a difference. People are still going to commit suicide. So after Port Arthur, one of the things with the gun ban was that you can look at the stats. Absolutely, yes. Death, suicide by firearm has gone down 100%. Almost 100%. Farmers are still, they have access to guns, and unfortunately that's a sort of a demographic that, that tragedy happens to a lot. But so anti-gunners will say, look, we have solved suicide by firearm. But actually, if you look at the true stats, suicides by hanging have gone up 100%. Same amount of people with in deep mental distress are committing suicide. Now they're just going to a shop called Bunnings, which is the equivalent of Home Depot here, buying a rope, using a necktie, whatever they use. So banning guns doesn't stop violence. It doesn't stop mental health decline. These are issues that are far beyond simply reducing the amount of bullets you can carry in a magazine. These are real issues that communities need to talk about. But Port Arthur showed, firstly, that sort of spirit of, no, you don't get to tell us, government, how we defend ourselves. People just complied. So, no, I'm sorry you didn't become like America. If you did, you would have pushed back. And for myself, Do you know what? Can I just segue here? Someone said something that blew my mind last month. I was at a national conference of a Girl and a Gun national conference, women's shooting league, women from all over the nation coming and just, shooting together. It's quite amazing, and learning and growing. And I took a defensive class with a chap by the name of Adam Winch, who's absolutely amazing. You should look him up. And he has so much to offer. And it was quite outrageous. I mean, we were rolling around on the dirt and gravel, and, someone's calling, knife, knife, knife. And we had to get in a shooting position, and there were women bumping into each other, and you just had to shoot safely, and you had to shoot straight and fast. And it was a fairly advanced class, but it was wonderful. And he picked on me a little bit. My grip needed a little bit of tweaking. And he said, he started calling me a control freak. He was poking fun. He was just poking fun. But actually it turned out he was getting at something more profound, which came out later. And I knew he was just poking. But later on he said, this one is such a control freak. She had to leave her country and come and become a citizen of this country so no one could tell her what to do. And I went, oh, that's where it's coming from. You're absolutely bloody right, Adam. Not that I left Australia because I didn't want to be told what to do, but there is something in me that says, no, I'm free. And that's why here I feel so at home as well. I go back to Australia, I feel at home as well. Of course I do. I love Australia. And if any Australians are listening, please don't think I'm dissing on Australia. But from my life here now, and for how my mindset has changed, there was a part of me, a very young Kate, that this mindset was already there. And when I came here, and although I became a citizen, like officially at the naturalization ceremony, I do believe that it was during that dreaded last interview where you have to do the civics test. That's really quite scary. Oh, it's actually very easy, but it's quite daunting. And it was at that interview that actually I believe I became an American, because they asked me, "Are you involved in any clubs?" That's a very, very innocuous question. But something in me rose up and went, oh, don't say you're part of a women's shooting club. That's bad. And it was this sort of inner dialogue where I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Because I totally don't have a problem with guns. And yet in this moment, I'm deathly afraid to tell this person who is ticking boxes on whether or not I can become a citizen. I am afraid to say, yes, I'm part of a women's shooting club, because something deep down inside me is telling me that's bad. And I had to fight through it. And I eventually just said I'm part of a women's group. And they had to coax it out of me. What does this women's group do? I said, well, we shoot things. Not live things, shoot paper. We shoot paper. And she just sort of went, okay, ticked a box. And I went, thank God. And then she asked, are you involved in any, have you had any paramilitary training? And I'm like, oh, definitely. Do not say you have done that. I've shot almost everything aside from a cannon. Don't tell her that. That makes you sound like a terrorist. And again, I'm like, where is this coming from? And I realized in that moment, that is the ghost of Port Arthur. That I say, it didn't affect me because I've always been a rebel, want to be free. But actually it did. It deeply affected my life. Even though, on a conscious level, I just, I thought guns were cool. Subconsciously, I was afraid. And I was afraid to be associated with them. And it all came up in this one interview. And I'm like, oh, gosh, you could have come up earlier. Why are you coming up now? Again, I said to her, no, gosh, no. Paramilitary training. And she said, but you do shoot guns, don't you? And you have received training. And I said, well, yes. And she said, so, yes? I said, yes, okay, I have. And in that moment when I just had to go, oh, you have to own this, Kate, or either just give it up, I had this shift in my mind, and I went, lady, I didn't say this to her, this was internal. I said, lady, if you've got a problem with my answer, That's on you. I have a right to bear arms in this country. I am not ashamed of that. Yes, I have had paramilitary training. Yes, I am part of a women's shooting league. And the very next question was, would you be prepared to take up arms in defense of your nation if required to? And I just said, absolutely I would. Because I could. And I realized, you know what? I'm an asset to my community. I'm an asset to my country because I can defend it. And I can defend me and my little space here. And so that was a really powerful moment when I realized, oh no, I just became an American. And then it was all official a couple of weeks later. But that's when it happened. And I think of that as the ghost of Port Arthur that came up and just really tried to grab me. And I just pushed him away. It took a bit of effort, but I pushed him away. So yeah, that's where Port Arthur comes into my life.
Well, it's fascinating too because you have when somebody uses those words or phrases, paramilitary training.
They're scary words. Why are they scary?
But I feel like in general they do it on purpose because it drums up this, oh my gosh, this fear, right? So what is the definition? And I'm sure, some of our listeners, oh, well, paramilitary means this. Well, okay, fine. But just for this part of the conversation, it's like, if I do a handgun 103 course, does that qualify? And especially to whoever's asking this question, do they consider, being able to draw from a holster as paramilitary training? Is it doing combined rifle pistol training? I mean, those are skills that people seek out so that they know how to use their firearms well and be proficient gun handlers, which is what Marvin and I were trying to educate people. Go learn how to use your guns that you own. Or if you want to get a rifle, or if you want to get a pistol, you should learn how to use it. And you're saying the exact same thing. Yeah. But then these words and phrases come up where either the media or people asking questions, it's like, oh, paramilitary training, or what it's a very interesting phrase that people will come up with.
And it's something that I think for a lot of new firearms owners, particularly women, they would do well to, I would suggest, if you're listening, I would do well to reject it. Say, heck yeah, I'm going to go learn how to use an AR-15. Do it. Learn the... You know what? I hate the word empowerment. It's just so overused, but it's a good word. It is so empowering to learn how to do these things. They're not just skills. It's actually, shooting is very good for your mind. Go and put your toe into the competitive world.
I was just going to ask you
to do it.
Have you done some?
Well, that's actually how I learned to shoot.
Oh, great.
Kate Giddins, she just jumps out the plane without a parachute. I just jumped in the deep end, and that's how I learned. I never took lessons. I just went straight to competition.
Okay.
And, I got a holster and I practiced drawing from the holster, and I had looked up, and my husband helped me with guidelines how to do it safely. Still didn't know how to do it in, like it's all well and good to do it dry fire, which for new shooters, that's practice without live ammo, and you really need to do it because it will improve your shooting, tenfold, even more. But I just jumped into, actually it was one of SIG's EDC, so everyday carry competitions, which are great for women to do as well, because you may not picture yourself as someone that's going to sit on a rooftop with a rifle, but if you're carrying for self-defense, this actually may be something that you end up having to do. And God willing, you never have to, but that's a great way to practice it, is to just add a little bit of stress and a whole lot of fun with just, you'll make instant friends at competitions. It's a wonderful community. And that is how I learned. That's how I learned how to shoot safely. And from there, actually, I started learning how to instruct others.
That's neat.
So it's actually only been since I've got my certification that I've taken lessons to become a better instructor as well. And there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of egoism that you got to weed through to get to the kernels that work for you, because it's unique to everybody. But so get into competition. Just try things. Find someone that hasn't World War II. Mauser or an M1 Garand. Get in there, shoot that sucker, feel the kick of the donkey, and just go, whoa, whoa, and imagine what it was like for the guys in war. No hearing protection. I mean, you would be deaf after the first couple of shots, and there's hundreds of these going off around you. It's a fantastic experience. It's an exciting world.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
but it's true that those words, I think, are used intentionally to cause fear. And as I say, Marvin, that is God didn't give us that spirit. That's all I'm saying. Power, love, sound mind.
I think that's the probably the most powerful takeaway, I think, in this entire conversation is to not be afraid, that so many people are walking into those situations, see those tragedies, and their message is fear as opposed to empowerment. I think the other message that I wish we could just take that as a clip and just play it over and over again is what you were talking about, right after they asked you about whether or not you've had paramilitary training, was whether or not you were willing to take up arms and defend your country. And I think that is the fact that we ask that of immigrants who are naturalizing for this country. I think it speaks so deeply to what our country is about, who we are, is that we defend ourselves, we defend our country, we defend our neighbors, our families against threats, and to the point that it is being asked during your naturalization process at the end. I don't know how anybody can hear that and say, well, you know what, I'm afraid of guns. I won't defend my country. I won't defend my family. I won't defend my community. I won't defend my friends if something happens. And so, I mean, those were just the things that I was taking away from what you were talking about, and thank you for sharing your story. It also made me think of something that my wife had said when I first took her shooting, and now she's very comfortable with both rifle and pistol. She's going to get some shotgun training, but she said, I don't want to wait around for somebody to come save me if I'm with my daughter. And so, to your comments earlier about being a mama bear, my wife doesn't want to huddle in a closet in the dark on the phone if somebody kicks in our front door when I'm not there and I'm traveling for work. And what is she going to do? Wait 10 minutes? Excruciating 10 minutes for the police to come? That is the average response time. And so, all of those things really, it brings back to mind all of the things that my wife had told me previously when, I'd taken her shooting, and she wants, all right, before I leave, making sure that her thumbprint, and she remembers the code to the safe, right? Every single time I go off on a work trip. Hey, I just want to make sure this is still working. This is all still good.
Mm-hmm. No, she sounds like a good woman to me.
Well, she has the same mindset as you do. No fear, right? Don't give in to the fear. Be self-reliant. Be resilient. Have agency. Be independent, and don't let other people tell you what you can and cannot do. So
it's very interesting when you go and sort of that looking at mums and their kids, and there is a generational fear and a generational freedom that is passed down. I went a couple of months ago over to support the state director for Maine, who were going through lots of gun bills after Lewiston happened, and a lot is unfolding after that. And there were a couple of bills that came up, and they just needed support. So that's what we do. We go and support our neighbor states in these fights, and like Massachusetts needs a heck of a lot of support too. But during the hearing, there were several young girls, maybe early teens, that they had brought in to testify, to say, please bring in these gun laws. And these girls all started crying about their memories of Lewiston. They weren't at Lewiston, but they were so deeply affected. Their schools were on alerts. These children were close. One of them was so distraught she couldn't speak. And it's not that I'm without heart. I understand that people are deeply traumatized, but how are you in your right mind passing down this fear to your daughters to the point that they're wailing and they're afraid? They're too scared to go to school now. And I'm like, what are you doing? And this, I think it's really, really bad and really, really good for women like your wife to sort of take that leading role of being that strong woman, of showing her children that women aren't weak, that women have the power and the ability and the brains. They're not so stupid that they don't know which end of the gun is which. You know, they know how to pull the trigger if they need. God willing, they never need to in that moment. But this is a legacy of power that we're responsible for passing down to our kids. And there's also this legacy of how do you say it? Like being a good ambassador for guns. You're passing that down to our children too. Safe firearm storage, seeing how their parents do it, that's what they're going to do. And a lot of the stories that say Moms Demand and people like Giffords and Brady's and organizations like this will use are people who have had experience with violence and guns due to unsafe storage. Well, you don't legislate that, you teach someone. You don't need more legislation, you need more education. And that always, what you learn in the home is what you take out into the world. So you guys are doing an amazing job teaching your kids how to be responsible gun owners right from the get-go. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. And I think to your point, it's not just education; it becomes a cultural thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, when you have a culture of not having fear, not being afraid, being safe, and treating firearms with respect, I think that starts at the home. That starts with my wife. That doesn't start with me, because my wife is the role model for my daughter. She's going to look up to her mom and say, "What is mom doing?" And go from there. And so I think that's a big piece of it. Is women are the role models. They what is the phrase? Uh, Mother is the name of God in the mouths of children, right? And so children, your mother is the center of your world. It's the first person who teaches you many things in your life. And so I think, to your point, empowering women and having women be the genesis of that culture of safety, of independence, of not having fear, I think is so much more powerful than what groups like Mom Demand Action and Brady and Giffords, where they're fomenting a culture of dependence on somebody else with a gun, right? Somebody's perpetrating violence on me, and so I now have to call somebody else with a gun to come protect me, and I'm at their whim, their mercy. If they decide not to come, what am I going to do, right? Or if they don't get here in time, So I think absolutely. I think the the mission is so critical for women, for gun rights, especially in today's society.
I agree. And the other side of that gun ownership for women, being responsible for their own safety, is not just learning how to shoot a gun, but it's also to develop those safe habits that have nothing to do with firearms, but can help avoid having to resort to one. So, for example, a very common one that we're all guilty of doing: when you've come out from doing the grocery store, you sit in the car and answer some texts or check your phone. No, get in the car You don't have to speed away in fear. Just get and go. Don't sit there. Don't make yourself vulnerable. You know, if you're parking somewhere at night, don't park under the broken streetlight. Don't park somewhere that's backed you into a corner. You know, just this level of awareness increases and necessarily must increase once you become a firearm owner. And I would say to women who are new firearms owners, please get yourself some self-defense training that includes avoiding trouble, because particularly when you get down to the legal side of things, you know, someone's going to pick apart, you know, if you do have to use that firearm, someone's going to pick it apart, and what they will look at is all the steps that led up to that, and did you avoid it at all costs? And if you put yourself in harm's way because you were at what they call condition white, which is just totally oblivious, and you go from 0 to 10 and pull out that firearm, that's not good for anyone. So yeah, please, if you're new to firearms, get yourself some training, not to be fearful of anything, but to be more prepared. And it just sort of, I think it deepens you, as it sort of makes you a richer person for being more aware of yourself and your surroundings, and how you can protect yourself and others without resorting to a firearm.
Yeah, and Kate, I know that we're kind of getting close on time for White Birch's hours here, so just give us one final thought that you have for the listeners. You know, what's something that you really hope that they take away here tonight?
One thing that I hope they take away is that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that they are so blessed to live here in America, where they have the right to defend their life with a firearm. And I applaud them for taking up arms and for learning how to defend themselves. And that's for the women. For the men, if you have women in your lives that you love and cherish, introduce them to this. At least introduce them to something that, if they're a little bit cautious about firearms, then perhaps look at getting involved in the right side of it, where you might not want to have a firearm yourself, but it can be very empowering to defend the right of another woman to be able to bear arms. So have a look at Women for Gun Rights. We're a really friendly organization, all made up of volunteers. No one's getting paid here. We just do this for love, for love of country. And womenforgunrights.org. Just jump on board, have a look, buy a raffle ticket. Could win a fairly amazing gun. And just love yourself enough to protect yourself and to come into that beautiful inheritance of freedom that we have. Just step into it and don't be afraid. That's what I would say.
Kate, thank you so much for your time tonight, and we just really appreciate your words of wisdom, your willingness to talk about the group that you're part of and leading, and just everything that you've imparted tonight. Hope to speak with you again, guys. I'm sure that listeners will probably have a whole ton of questions that we might have to have you on for another episode. And
I'd be
I'm
very
sure
happy
I got
to.
questions that I'll be thinking of to ask you for next time too. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mom, for having me.
Absolutely.
And if anybody is looking for any additional information, we'll have links and contact info in the show notes. And if any of our listeners find this useful, please give us a rating on the podcast platform of your choice so that we can reach more people. Thanks so much.